Hello and welcome back to the SimTech podcast, a podcast created by Simtechs for Simtechs, where we explore innovation, creativity, and people pushing healthcare simulation forward. Now, this episode came about after I attended Simulation Immersive Human Factors meeting, where I saw a presentation that genuinely stopped me in my tracks. It wasn't a new manikin, it wasn't a new piece of immersive tech, it was a board game. But not just any board game. It's called Suits and Scrubs, and it explores decision making, system pressures, leadership tensions, and human factors in healthcare in a way that's interactive, thought provoking, and importantly accessible. As Simtex, we often think about fidelity in terms of kit and environment, but what Suits and Scrub does, it shifts the focus towards systems, behaviours, and competing priorities, the stuff that really drives outcomes in the real world. So today, I'm joined by Suits and Scrubs, Baz, Rebecca, to talk about where the idea came from, the problem they was trying to solve, and how the game works in practice and what it means for simulation going forward. Baz, Rebecca, welcome to the SimTech podcast. Hello and welcome back to another episode here at the SimTech podcast. Today we're going to be talking to the team from Suits and Scrubs, the guys that have made a simulation board game all about, well, I want to say it's all about the money. And to help me to do that, I've brought along the team that have created it. Special guests, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yes, hi. I'm Rebecca Hancock. I work at Newcastle University. I'm a doctor by background, but I transitioned into working purely in medical education in 2018, and I'm now the Director of Interprofessional Education for the Faculty of Medical Sciences at Newcastle.
Morning. My name is Rebecca Casey, and I'm a lecturer in information systems at Newcastle University Business School. And my research focuses on the enablers and barriers of digital innovation and adoption of digital innovation, particularly in healthcare.
Hi, and I'm Bas Oldhoff. I am a lecturer in neurobiology here at the Newcastle School of Medicine.
Well, thank you for coming along and joining me today. Obviously, you're all from the same region, same university. Would you like to tell us what your idea was and how you met each other doing it?
Baz, do you want to tell the story of how we came to?
Yeah, fair enough.
I
worked with Rebecca Hancock for quite a long time in the School of Medicine. We were both lecturers here at the time, and we led on the same graduate entry medicine program. And we were always looking to identify gaps in the curriculum. How can we make the curriculum more exciting? What's missing? What could we add to all the medicine that we teach the students? And we sort of realized that lots of doctors, and Rebecca will probably talk more about this later, make lots of sort of business decisions around resource management, even though we don't necessarily articulate it like that usually. But lots of the doctors make those decisions all the time. And we were like, we really should be doing something with this. We really should be thinking about how can we best teach this to the students. So we thought maybe the business school would be a good place to start. And I realized that I knew someone working in the business school, which is Rebecca Casey, because we play rugby together in North Shields, and we've played for a long time. And we've traveled through the country to different tournaments and talked about our careers and work. And so I was like, I know someone in the business school I can get in touch with. And maybe, just maybe, she is interested in doing a collaboration together. And that's where we brought Rebecca in.
All right. So then you all met each other. Where did the idea for this game come from then?
Well, it all started when we first met in the business school, and we had a meeting, and we did lots of whiteboard scribbling and workshopping ideas, exchanging ideas about how we were teaching our students, how we were trying to do things in a different way. And I think we must have been there around 2 hours, was it, Baz and Rebecca? Something like that, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. And we talked about lots of different ideas, and we were talking about some of the simulations that I had seen in business and management education, especially that were game-based. And I was talking about this particular game that I had seen on the MBA program, where the students had to simulate almost a factory scenario where a customer order would come in, and then they would have to process order through a number of different departments in the factory. And I think that was the kind of initial spark. We all said, "Oh, that's something that we could potentially do together, and bring medicine and business together." And that's how it started. And it just evolved and developed from
Those
there.
crazy ideas, no regrets. Where for people that have never heard of Suits and Scrubs or don't understand the concept, how would you describe what it is to maybe an alien? Remember that you've got to try to paint a picture here without no pictures.
I think
Yes.
Baz is probably best placed to do that.
Well, Scrubs and Suits, I would probably describe it as, it is a board game. So it is a very large board on the table, like A1 size. So it is very big because we want everyone to be able to interact with what's in front of them. And we purposefully made it very colorful, with colorful cards, colorful objects, so that it looks really fun. I think our main focus is to make it fun and engaging. So basically, Scripts is a queuing system where you have a number of patient cards, and they all have to have specific treatments that are dedicated on their cards, and they have to move through a hospital system. And you, as players, are collaborating together, and you play against the board. So it's a collaborative board game where you make decisions together, like we're going to extend the hospital, what departments are we going to buy, which patients are we putting in what department, at what time, when are they coming out, are we investing in, I don't know, are we investing in this vaccination program, or are we investing in telemedicine? And there are also all these decisions that cost money that allow you to move patients more efficiently through the system, or that might hinder you. But effectively, it's a queuing system where the patients need to go from the waiting room all the way down to having received all of their treatment in the appropriate order.
I mean, what other methods did you explore before you settled onto a board game?
I mean, we settled on a board game pretty quickly. I think it was Baz's creative ideas that really got us to that point. I think, as Rebecca mentioned and Baz mentioned, we really wanted to bring these group of students together. We kind of recognised that this isn't done very commonly, even in amongst interprofessional education, which is about bringing people together. So once we kind of thought what we wanted to do, where are the shared where the commonalities between the programs, Baz quite quickly actually developed how this board game could work, how it could bring people together, how it could really make students think and reflect and have that level of complexity that's engaging. We didn't want to make it too easy, we didn't want to make it too hard, but I'd say actually down to Baz's creative ideas, that wasn't as difficult as I think you would maybe imagine. He was able to do that pretty readily. So this was our first idea, actually, of how it could work. We've made slight changes over time, but not massive ones. So we didn't try any initial different ways of doing it. But Baz, you could probably add a bit more to that.
Well, where we kind of came from is like most IPE sessions that we run with different healthcare providers, we always get the students in, and those people don't really know each other at that time, and we always need an icebreaker, and that takes the form of a game. I think that's where that idea came from. Like, people need to feel comfortable in order to work together before they open up with each other. And we're like, what if we turn that on its head and make the entire session a game right from the start, and gamify it in such a way that people feel comfortable, and they almost forget that they don't know each other and that they're making very difficult decisions about complex topics, because they feel comfortable, like, oh, there's a board game, oh, there's red coins here, and they all play with the coins, and sort of without having to look each other in the eye because there's something to distract them. I think we tricked them into having a good time. It is all about making them forget that.
Yeah, I mean, there's an element of community when you sit around the board, isn't there? There's,
Yeah.
you get to know people in a different way of how they think, how they'll deal with certain things, and you don't get that when you're just sat next to someone in a classroom, in lines, almost in didactic teaching kind of method.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this like Baz has said, like this really highlighted the students, but like implicitly without us having to labour the point that you are all on the same team, and that's how it works in practice. We are all on the same team. So we wanted to make this a collaborative style board game, one that really makes sure the students are communicating and, trying to get their priorities across, but are all trying to reach the same end goal. Because otherwise it can be very easy when you've got people from different professional backgrounds to end up in a bit of, our perspective versus your perspective, and we wanted to make sure that we avoided that at all costs. So that went into how the game was developed.
Yeah, I mean, would you say it's really quite psychologically safe playing board games then
Yeah,
compared to maybe traditional face-to-face simulation?
yeah, 100%. It really does create that safe to fail environment, and it can simultaneously surface some of the differences in how business students and medics might approach decision making, but it surfaces those differences in a really safe way, and in such a way that people feel comfortable to have those discussions. So yeah, I think we've said this a number of times, haven't we, Baz and Rebecca, about it being that safe to fail environment.
Yeah, I mean, even before you start playing the game, I assume they get maybe a little bit of a pre-brief, and where you settle them in, trying to explore like the rules and that kind of stuff. And do they like a normal day? Would they introduce themselves to each other and that kind of format?
Yeah, absolutely. We think we start the session by first of all introducing why we're doing it. I think we want to make sure that the students are having fun. Absolutely, like Baz said, aid that engagement, get students just talking to each other person to person, put your professional hat to one side for a moment. But then also we wanted to make sure that it was in some ways authentic, or as authentic as you can have a board game in a classroom, that there is a purpose to this, so that it aids the students' buy-in, that this is helping them with their professional role identity, their communication skills, their collaborative skills. So they can also see the purpose, that it's fun, but it is meaningful at the same time. So we pitched that at the beginning. So I talk a little bit about why we do interprofessional education, and there's patience at the heart of that. This is about developing those factors that will help people when they graduate and when they're working in healthcare, to bring the best out in themselves and in each other and work together in a safe and collaborative way. So we do a sort of introduction from that point of view, and then we introduce the scenario, if you like, that right, you are now in. I can't remember, what did we name it, Rebecca?
The Great North City Hospital.
Yeah, so we kind of do set the scenario, and right, this is who you are, this is where you are,
Yeah.
and to highlight the roles of the people they'll be embodying within the game, to again kind of give it a bit of authenticity. And then Baz introduces very much the kind of the rules of the game. How actually does this work? What do the rounds of the game look like? And then we do the first round all together so people can understand just on the mechanics level what they're doing. And then we step back, very much in, similar to other forms of simulation, let the group dynamic form itself. We circulate. So, if there's any issues, any groups are getting stuck, or we can suggest or ask sort of some questions just to get the groups considering different perspectives. But it is very much hands off.
Yeah, but we do give them some dedicated roles, because so at the beginning, when Rebecca explains how the game works and that they are now in charge of this Great North City Hospital, that they need to appoint a finance director, they need to appoint a director of patient flow, and so they assign themselves roles that they are then responsible for, and that creates quite a fun dynamic in all the groups, because they're going to be like, no, wait a second, we need to talk finance here first. No, I understand you want to be efficient, but we're running out of money here. We can't afford to do that, and that gives them a little bit of ownership over at least part of the game. And we introduced that, I think, much stronger in later iterations of the game, and because we then wanted them to sort of reflect on the different roles as well. And I think that made the game even more interactive and creates an even stronger group dynamic because they have some ownership over at least a part.
When you was creating it, I assume that it was made through, some structured and learning objectives to build the game. I mean, what's the main outcome that you're trying to accomplish from it?
I think from an interprofessional education point of view, it was around supporting students develop those competencies. So not necessarily around knowledge exchange, but more around those skills of negotiation, teamwork, communication, role identity, meeting people that have a different perspective in healthcare. So it was more around putting them in, as I said, a sort of authentic style scenario where they can start to see what that would look like. The language that different professionals use, they may be talking about the same thing, but they'll talk about it in a different way. And I'm sure Rebecca can come in on this as well. So I'd say it was more around skill development than learning objectives from a knowledge perspective. And again, also hoping to get the students to recognize why interprofessional education is important. Why are sessions like this helpful? Because these skills that we're getting students to form, and meeting people from different backgrounds, that doesn't always happen in education, in healthcare education. So to get them excited about meeting people from different backgrounds, because ultimately that's what's going to happen, when they graduate. Rebecca, I don't know if you have anything to add there from the business side.
Yeah, I think just touching on what you said there, Rebecca, about the different language, because that's certainly something that we've observed, and it's something I've observed in my research as well. So we wanted to make that management clinical interface more real much earlier on in their education before they're actually out there in the workplace. And for me, as somebody who has observed digital transformation projects in a health and care context, it's really important to develop that open communication and shared decision making, and also the understanding of one another's disciplines and roles, because that's the only that's the only way that you're going to overcome those tensions between safety, patient safety, upholding patient safety against efficiency and financial sustainability of a healthcare organisation. So yeah,
Was
really,
there
yeah.
was there any unintended learning outcomes that fell through it when they started playing that you didn't even think about, that started to maybe see some patterns in them?
Yes, definitely. I think Rebecca had quite a story to tell there.
Yeah, I think what it really highlighted for us as educators, particularly from a medical education perspective, is that there is a difference. I think there always will be a difference in how you can view a patient, when you're playing a board game, when they're there as an individual, and obviously a traditional simulation can be, based around one mannequin, and, you're thinking about that very individualistic healthcare decision making. But in this game, we've given the students a population to manage. You've got a population who are in your waiting room, and you're making decisions about them as a whole. And what we recognize from playing this game is that this can affect the decisions that students can make about what they want to prioritize, how they're going to approach that patient group. And that made us really reflect on, as educators, do we prepare students for this? Do we do enough sessions where we're not just saying, what would you do for this individual patient, but what would you do if you're responsible for a group of patients? And so it really made us reflect on what that could do, the tensions that could bring up, the questions that could bring up for students. Does that affect how we use ethical decision making? Do you take certain pillars more into consideration when you're thinking about population? Because obviously you're thinking then much broadly around resource allocation, which may not come out if you're doing a simulation that's just based on one individual. So I think it really brought that to light for us and has made us think about different sessions going forward.
And the business school students, they surprised me because I thought that they would prioritize financial goals. But actually, they tended to be the ones that really wanted to think ahead and consider investing in early adoption of telehealth, for example. Even though on the face of it, when you're playing the game, the way we've designed it, initially that seems like quite a big trade-off, because if you invest in telehealth, then the hospital doesn't get paid. But interestingly, the business school students seem to be more prepared to take those innovative leaps, if you like. And it seemed really concerned as well about patients.
I mean, it's really
which
easy
is
to
good.
forget, sometimes why you do these kind of things, and when you're sucked into a game, you forget sometimes about maybe patients, and because they
Yes.
become just almost just a number or a
Absolutely.
figure. Yeah, and and actually being able to make it more personal, and maybe put a face behind the digit, as it were. It makes people, it tests maybe the human factors and the non-technical skills to another level.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because that's one of the questions that we maybe threw in there when we were walking around the groups. The cards that we have that are representing patients don't have any faces on them. They don't have names. But sometimes we go around and say, what if they did have faces on? What if they did have names? Would that change the way you approached it? Why or why not? And we found that a really sort of meaningful question, and it did make some people who are playing the game go, oh my goodness, well, if I thought about these people as a group of individuals, then actually I might make different decisions. Would you not? And it's also just bring up those questions, like we said, in a safe way, to get people to reflect on that.
I mean, how do you, as faculty, when they're playing the game, are you standing back? Are you taking notes? I mean, is there going to be a debrief after the game, for instance? So, are you trying to pick up on certain points, or are you involved? Are you doing hot debriefs as the game goes on?
Well, it's very much a mixture of all of those things. So we are involved, and we do not sit at the tables ourselves. We let the groups play the game as they are, but we are floating around. We are listening into the conversation. Sometimes we join into the conversation, or we ask questions if and when sort of they arise, because there are lots of chance cards and opportunities or threats, if you like, on the board that the student can make decisions on, and we sometimes want to probe a little bit further. Like, why did you make that decision? Or as Rebecca just highlighted, maybe ask that question in the moment. Like, but if this was a patient with a face and a name and 2 cats at home, would that change your decision? And then would you then maybe invest in telehealth and think that they should stay at home or in the community instead of coming into the hospital? And that makes them then realize, like, oh, I've made an ethical decision. I haven't put a label on it, but I have. And so in the moment, that can be really valuable. But we do have sheets of paper where they need to reflect throughout the game. So there are reflection points, and there are times where they need to feed back information to what we call the board of directors, like, by what decisions did you make and how did you make them? What was your reasoning behind it? And then we get that information, because it's on an online form, that comes in for all the hospitals, and we compare that at the end of the session. We throw all the graphs for all the hospitals on the screen and say, look, this is what everybody did. They're all different. Some have more patience, some others have more money, and others have, are more efficient or further ahead in the game. What decisions were made. There's not really a wrong or right, but it's more like that then allows a group discussion about the decisions that were made and how what you would change if you could go back. So we do a bit of both, really, and we are sort of wanting to take that forward into actually having ethical or ethics discussion sessions in the hours after the game to sort of really reflect on the decision that each individual group made. So it allows to build on that.
How easy is it to put new concepts into it? Do you have kind of like a modular approach to it where you can pull things out depending on who your audience is?
Yeah, absolutely. You can completely customize the game to whatever scenario you want to adapt. So all the you can even adapt the patient population because they're all just cards, and we have made different populations for different sort of scenarios and different games. Because currently it is a hospital with say 12 departments, but it could easily be a GP practice with a dedicated patient population. It could be a stroke ward, it could be a pharmacy. I mean, it could be a shoe factory if you really wanted to get out of medicine. But yeah, you can customize the scenarios very easily and readily, and we have made changes to it based on our target audience or who we know is coming or might be interested in it. And we've played it with quite a lot of different members of staff who are also like, oh, have you thought about bringing in this particular element? And yeah, then we can just make new sets of cards to really edit that down or change it to whoever is interested.
I mean, what's kind of the production value on your board? Because it's probably hard to get it over there, but have you gone to the hard work of getting it professionally made? Because what I'm thinking about is, how do you create these cards? Are you just printing something out and calling them cards, or are you going to a factory where they're making, professional cards?
Such a timely question, Craig. Well, thankfully, we do have the creative genius of Bath, who has created we have 10 boards and all of the cards and tokens to go with each of those boards. And they are beautiful.
Are they all the same type of board, or are they different layouts?
No, they're the same type of board. But we are currently looking into or seeking funding to get those professionally designed and printed, because a number of individuals and organizations have been in touch with us to ask, could you please send us this game? We want to play it. So we're in the process of trying to secure funding to do that.
Are you wanting to take it to market, or are you wanting to give it away out the generosity of your heart?
Who wants to answer this?
I think we are exploring the options of taking it to market, because there's quite a lot of interest, and not just in the UK, but we've had international interest from universities in the United States who are keen on playing it, on maybe adapting it, on changing it. So we were like, there is definitely enough interest here to potentially take it to market and allow other people to play it. So that is one of the major avenues that we're currently exploring, how that will work. Because Rebecca is obviously from the business school, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she has set up a business from scratch as such. Rebecca, Hancock, and myself have no background in business, so we're sort of learning on the fly. But we are taking part in a what's it called?
Accelerator. Yeah.
So we are going to learn a lot about how that works, and hopefully that will be useful in bringing that game to market relatively quickly.
I mean, it's probably worth noting that it's not it's no mean feat just creating a board game, is it? It takes a lot of work, a lot of hours to create this, and like you say, you might sit there feeling awkward, saying, "Oh, we want to make money off this," but it probably took. I don't know how many hours it took you. Do you know? Have you kind of calculated how long it took to create something like this?
Well, we've been doing this for 2 years. It's taken 2 years to get to this point.
Yeah,
so.
And I mean, did your vision feel like you've accomplished what you set out to, what you originally planned? I mean, I can only imagine how many iterations you've gone through to get to where you are today.
I think it's like grossly surpassed what we ever imagined.
Yeah.
This very much, I don't think we can stress enough how much this came from, 3 people sat around a whiteboard going, how can we bring business students and medical students together in a meaningful way? And now we're in a position where we've got multiple organizations saying, can we have it? Can we adapt it to be this different context and that different context? And, I think part of us thinking about how do we take that forward? Do we take it to market? It's thinking of a sustainable way that we can meet the needs of all these people who are interested, because we can adapt it to all these different contexts. Did we ever imagine in the beginning that would be a situation that we were in? Absolutely not. And we continue to pinch ourselves by even being on this podcast. We never ever thought something like this would be possible. So the interest that we've had in the game has been phenomenal. and that has been fantastic for the three of us. In terms of the game itself, the feedback that we have had from the game, from different groups of students, different groups of professionals from different professional backgrounds, has been fantastic. And that's across the board, which again surprised us. We knew we wanted it to talk to students, but what we didn't anticipate, and what was really amazing for us to see, is that actually it spoke to everybody. And whether that is because it is meeting those human factors that you talked about, Craig, whether it is about actually communicating, negotiating, kind of doing the best job you can, that actually anybody will find that engaging, because you're trying to beat the board, you're trying to come together as a team. So it has absolutely met what we needed it to, but I think it's also gone far beyond that, and we're really excited to see how far that can go.
I mean, it obviously, as it sounds, it evaluates well with people playing the game. Have you lent the game to anyone to see if they can run it without your expertise? I mean, what's it like when you give it to somebody else to run?
So we haven't done that yet. I think what we're keen to find out, and sort of what we've been doing so far, is say gathering that interest, and thinking, right, well, what is what is the demand for it, and what is required of us to support that integration of the game into different places. So do we need to start creating something we're very actively thinking about, sort of train the trainers style materials, so that the game can be used as effectively as possible. We wouldn't want to just give the game to somebody and then say play it, because actually, like you've already mentioned, the briefing is really important, setting the scene, making sure that everybody's fully understanding of the rules and the mechanics, because if those things weren't in place, just like a lot of other simulations, it could fall flat. So we don't want to do that without really considering that we're supporting people with it properly. So that's something we're actively thinking about now.
But I do think it is important to sort of highlight that we have played it with very many different groups of people, and usually it takes about 5 minutes for us to explain the mechanics and the rules. Yes, the scene setting is very important, but the basic mechanics of the game are fairly straightforward, and it just repeats itself over multiple times, and it then has its reflection point and difficult decisions. But the mechanics themselves are fairly straightforward. You build a department, maybe you don't build a department because you run out of money. Which patients are you moving in? Which are you moving out? What's your reasoning? Are you investing in the opportunity that's there? Or are you saying, no thanks, I don't want to pay 100 tokens to cure one patient? The mechanics are simple enough, so it isn't difficult for people to understand. And if people played it once, they will then be able to play that again. And what we are doing, we are taking it into the MBBS curriculum this summer. We're going to have 600 students play that game. We're going to have 32 members of staff that are going to have to supervise that game. So we are having a session with them, and where we play it with the supervisors, because that's the best way of learning it and actually understanding how fun it can be, and then play themselves, then supervise the students. So that is actively happening in the next few months. And I don't foresee any problems with that. But yeah, that will be the test.
How long does a session take, including all the rules and debriefs? And how long would you give yourself for a slot?
I think, well, we have been running them as 2-hour sessions, and that is because we like to be generous with time and have enough time to play the game and have a proper debrief and good chat in the middle. But because it's highly adaptable, you can play abbreviated versions of the game. You can get them started in a more advanced scenario, and then you can play it for like half an hour. It sort of depends on what your needs are. So you could definitely get away, because at conferences we had a 50-minute slot to play, and we managed to have a very successful session playing it in 50 minutes with these professionals. But for a student session, we tend to take 2 hours to give ourselves enough time for everybody to get settled and do the debriefs. But
you could play it even longer, couldn't you?
Yeah, totally, totally, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it does sound very flexible, and the modular approach. I mean, when you say modular, I mean, does the concept have to kind of remain the same, or can you completely change it from suits and scrubs to something completely different, or does it still have to stay around kind of economics kind of situation?
No, I don't think it has to, but you will have to think about what you use the queuing system for. items or patients or objects will need to be moved around through the system because that's what it's designed to do. Does that need to be economics? I think a lot of things, even though we not necessarily put them in those terms, are always about resource management. Because if we think about the university, you could strip away all the money elements. You could just see we have a timetable and we got 3,000 students. How do we fit them all through this timetable frame? And then it's, again, a resource system, but it's not really about economics. It's then about how do we make that fit in the time available, whether we put all these people at the same time. So you could change it completely on its head, as long as it's all about where do we allocate resources at a particular time, and can we change that, and what decisions do we need to make in that process. So what we really feel that, yes, it's a board game, and yes, it's really fun, but it can also be a design thinking tool, and it can be more than, you can use it for team building if that's all you're after, or you can use it for bringing teaching points across like we've done by setting it in a hospital and we've got ethics decisions. But it could be a design thinking tool. If you have a set of questions or something you try to think through and play through, you could make the cards, print the cards if you like, and use the boards for that purpose and test your ideas and where would the blockages occur, what have you not thought out. So you could really use it in very many different ways. But because it's engaging and fun, people will take to it fairly quickly, and then you can evaluate all your difficult decisions later on. I think it is really good in that sense that it's so adaptable and flexible that it suits multiple needs.
Yeah, I mean, if people are listening and maybe they want to get involved or help, what do you want from people? Obviously, you'd love someone to come and give you loads of money, but failing that, are you open for people to come on board, maybe either test the game or come and play the game or any kind of help? What would you want from people?
Yeah, I think we're really keen to continue piloting it, particularly within professional contexts, and to understand the potential for different scenarios as well and different systems, as Baz has explained. So I think we're hoping to come and play the game in your trust, Craig.
Yeah,
I think we're just trying to fix the time. So
no, well, we've got a couple of board game ideas on the go. So as you can see, when you presented it, everyone's ears probably went up. And that's why I know how much hard work and effort goes into these. How did you play test it? That's one of the challenges that we're having at the moment. It's all right to create a concept in your mind and maybe make the game, but how did you get to, almost beta where you're testing these concepts, seeing if it actually works? Did you test it on students or did you test it on family members? How did you test it?
Well, I suppose we made our own lives quite difficult in the sense that we booked that time slot in the timetable, because timetables are made months in advance. So we booked that slot in the timetable. Like, this is when we're going to do this game. That game did not exist at the time. And then we had to make it, and we made it, played it with members of staff, like GP lecturers, and then some professional services a few times, made some minor tweaks, and then we were like, let's just take it to the students and see what happens. And it went really well. The students really bought into it, and they were really, because we know the students quite well, they were really like, I can beat your game, Bas. I am beating your game. And I was like, well, I'd like to see you try. And I think that whole competitive element that they had against the board or against, me as a designer, that really made it really fun and have them buy into it. They gave a lot of feedback how we could tweak it, how we could make it better, where they were like, oh, could you do something like this? Because we made it slightly easier for the first time around. We only gave them one set of patients and they were finished. And they were like, oh, we beat your game. I was like, no, you haven't, because you are now on day 2 and you will get this envelope full of patients. And we're like, oh, God, we could not possibly do any of this. And it's like, well, I didn't want to overwhelm you for the first round, but we had thought that all through. So we play tested it with colleagues, not so much family members, but yeah, we play tested it with colleagues. And then we just went for the students, and it went from there. And then, yeah, it became quite popular. So yeah, we keep playing it with students. We've taken it to a conference, business entrepreneurial conference in Manchester, which was very good. And they gave us loads of feedback, because they were really can-do people that were like, this is amazing, this is something different, and have you thought about? And they had a million different ideas that were like, oh god, we can't cope with any of all this, so many ideas. That was very exciting and very thrilling. So I think every time you play it, every iteration in itself provides more feedback and provides more ideas or context that the game can be played at.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, and it's you can probably transfer it over to simulation, is that this is just a modality to get people talking and thinking, and that's why you sometimes the facilitators, the people that are running the games, are so important. And the game almost doesn't even have to work sometimes if you've got a good facilitator there who is prompting and driving and making sure that it goes well. And it's the same with a simulation. If you've got the right people there, anything can work. And that's why I asked the question earlier on if you gave it to someone else and seeing how they make it work, because you guys have lived this for what I can tell 2 years. So you're very, very experienced at running this game. And but if you came over and just give it to us, we'd probably run it completely different in our own little way, and we'll probably make it work again. And I'd just be really interested to see that kind of concept.
Yeah, I think that would be really fascinating. And like Baz says, we've got the opportunity, this summer to see many people facilitate the game. And it'd be really interesting for us to kind of observe how they do that or the questions that they ask the students. Because you'll be right, there are things we won't have thought about. We're now used to the questions, as even as individuals, I'll go in with more kind of healthcare, I guess, ethical questions to really get the students thinking or asking each other about. Rebecca, obviously, with her business mindset, Baz really knows about the game and all the different pivots that the students will have to move in the game. So, we're already also so used to working together, doing this, that I agree. I think seeing what other people bring to that, again, will be eye-opening for us and probably make us think more about other things we could do.
Mm. Have you recorded a session? So if people wanted to watch a video of how it actually works, have you done anything like that so people maybe can get a little bit more of an insight of how it actually works in real life?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Well, as it happens, I think Rebecca Hancock is in the process of organising exactly that at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, if people want to learn more about the game, how can they find out any more information about it?
Feel free to contact any of us. We would be happy to speak or meet with anybody who is interested in learning more about the game. We've done that a number of times already. We're very happy to receive emails, and if people have ideas about different contexts for the game as well, as we've kind of highlighted, it doesn't need to be somebody who's thinking, right, well, I need to have business students or medical students. You don't at all. If the concept of how this game works, getting people to work together around a central problem, or to have a queuing system, or to think about resource allocation, whatever it is. But if people want a game which can stimulate conversation, negotiation, communication, teamwork, any of those things, then we'd love to hear from them.
Yeah, Brill. Well, like I say, I will put any of your contact information in the episode description. So if people want to reach out to find out more information, they can just contact you. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we sign off? Have we covered everything, do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, happy days. Well, thank you for coming on and speaking to me today. I can't wait to get my hands on it and see what it's like. But if you would like any help in, getting the message out or playtesting, we are the ones to help. Have you thought about maybe ASPE 2026? Are you going to get a presentation or a poster submitted to the conference? Do you know?
Oh, that would be a fantastic opportunity. Yeah, I would love to hear more about that.
So ASPE is in the north, so it's Harrogate this year, so it's in
Oh.
November. But yeah, I think this would make a great poster presentation, or heaven forbid, even a workshop. But we'll see where that goes.
Oh, we'd
Great.
love that.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely look into that. Thank you.
Right, guys. Well, thank you for coming today. It's been great speaking to you.
Oh,
Thank you for
likewise.
having us.
Thank you.
Baz, Rebecca, and Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing the story behind Suits and Scrubs. What I really love about this is that it challenges our assumptions about what simulation has to look like. It doesn't need a control room. It doesn't need AV. It doesn't need high fidelity equipment. Sometimes the real power is in structured conversation, systems thinking, and creating a safe space to explore pressure and decision making. As techs, we're often the people building the environment, but this episode is a great reminder that the innovation in simulation isn't just about equipment, it's about ideas. And Suits and Scrubs is a brilliant example of that. If you're listening to this and something has sparked inside you, maybe a new way to run a session or a different way to explore human factors with your teams, I'd really encourage you to come and look into this game and see how it might fit into your centre. As always, if you've enjoyed this episode of SimTech Podcast, please share it with your colleagues, tag us on LinkedIn, and help give us simulation technicians a national voice. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next time on the SimTech Podcast.